UK Flat Track's 18th season gets underway with round one of the 2023 DTRA UK Flat Track Nationals presented by Royal Enfield. We were due to open this campaign at the Echo Arena in Middlesbrough, but the venue's availability was withdrawn due to the Redcar versus Birmingham Speedway fixture that ironically has been subsequently postponed due to the weather. So instead we make the first of 3 visits this year to the Greenfield dirt track, scene of our 2022 season finale some 7 months ago. 8 of last year's final top 10 are in today's field. Paul Young sitting this one out, and no overseas riders on show. After missing most of the 2022 World Championship season due to a left knee injury, Ferran Sastre will now focus on his international commitments, while Gerard Bailo sits out the Pro Series as he recovers from a shoulder injury. Knockout format in play this afternoon. Qualifying has already eliminated 4 riders. The rest go into the heat stages, about to get underway. Now, starting positions for the opening round should be assigned based on qualifying, but it looks as though the riders here are selecting their gates, which isn't the usual way of doing things, so we'll wait for them to settle before calling the full grid. But the first seed is Gary Birtwistle on the number 11, the reigning champion, topped qualifying with a 15.292, almost 0.3 of a second faster than his nearest rival. The rest of the top 6 pretty evenly matched, so we should have a good scrap on our hands for the podium places. The top 3 from last year's intermediate class lining up here for Heat 1. Charlie Kelly, the 2022 champion, on the inside of the second row, Jake Eadie on the outside of the front row, and Kevin Kennedy on the pole. Heat number 1 under starters orders. Watch for the number 11, Gary Birtwistle, the reigning champion, but it's the 181, Mike Goodfellow with a flying start. It's Goodfellow with the surprise hole shot, pursued now immediately by the reigning champion, Gary Birtwistle. Battle on for 4th position as well. Kevin Kennedy holding the line going into the top turn, but Charlie Kelly trying to bundle his way through. Birtwistle with the better line coming off turn 4. Wheels is in line earlier to come through for the race lead at the start of the second lap. Remember, it's a 6-lap sprint in the early stages of the meeting. The top 4 going through to the semi-finals in these first 3 preliminary races. The rest going to eliminator heats 4 and 5. Kevin Kennedy continuing to tumble backwards. He's now been picked off by Scott Faulkner. Meanwhile, Charlie Kelly comes through ruthlessly on Jake Eadie, moves him right up onto the outside line, onto the marbles on the exterior of the circuit. So Kelly losing a lot of ground there, the number 999, and Scott Faulkner beginning to make a little bit of ground. Faulkner, who was restricted to a part season in 2022 as a result of a motocross accident, making a full-time return in 2023, trying to close down Jake Eadie for 4th position, the last of those automatic transfer spots to the semi-finals in Greenfield this afternoon. But instead, Faulkner looks to be dropping back. Kevin Kennedy keeping him honest here from 6th place. No change up at the head of the field. Gary Birtwistle extending his advantage, as you would have expected, to be perfectly honest. First position in qualifying. Mike Goodfellow in 7th, some way adrift of that lead sextet, but he's doing a good job here in 2nd place. Bit of a giant killing mission from Mike Goodfellow, little doubt about that. And he will put himself up onto the front row of the grid for one of those 2 semi-finals. It's Gary Birtwistle then who takes heat number 1. 2nd place to Mike Goodfellow, so front row grid slot, as I say, for the semi-final stages. Charlie Kelly gets 3rd, the youngest rider in our field, coming through on Jake Eadie. Eadie, though, holding on ahead of Scott Faulkner. Kevin Kennedy relegated back outside of the top 4 on the opening lap, then pushed back down to 6th position by Faulkner's move. But the riders from 5th places down will have to go again in the eliminator heats 4 and 5. Top 4 marching on, so Birtwistle and Goodfellow on the front row of the grid for the semi-final stages. Kelly and Eadie also through to the last 24. Heat 2 and a first appearance for 2016 and 17 British champion Alan Birtwistle. Now double electric champion as well after his comeback to the series in 2021. Alan was 2nd overall last year behind his brother and was closest to him in qualifying with P2. Interesting matchup in prospect here as well between Thomas Hunt and Fergus Bluff, contemporaries in the youth intermediates back in 2018. Both of them have come through the DTRA's junior ranks, and just 1.5 of a second separated them for single lap pace earlier on. These riders have settled in the correct order, so it's Alan Birtwistle on the pole, P2 in qualifying. Conrad Little, P5, goes off gate 2. The number 7, Neil McQueen, P8, goes off gate 3. Thomas Hunt, P11, on the 241 completes the front row. Fergus Bluff, George Sturgis, Sam Shook and Simon Bird on the middle row. Bailey Harker, Sam Neville, Ben Anglesio and Aaron Tuttleby completing your 12-rider field. Starting marshal just making a last check after that initial race, but this time around they're all in the correct places and we are ready to go for heat number 2. Alan Birtwistle, a man to watch off the pole. We are underway. Poor start there from the front row from Neil McQueen. Great start from the outside of the middle row from Simon Bird, who gives chase. Conrad Little with the whole shot, but it's Alan Birtwistle who now threads his way through back to lead. Recovering the inside immediately on the attack, Conrad Little, but he can't get on terms and locks it up somewhat off turn 4. 3 riders now in the mix for second place. Conrad Little on the 171 in second position. Neil McQueen getting clear of Thomas Hunt. Hunt was almost alongside him coming off turn 4 on that opening lap, but Neil McQueen has shaken clear of that challenge from the youngster and is now going off in pursuit of Conrad Little. Bit of a lock-up coming off turn 4 from Thomas Hunt, but still riding inside those provisional qualification positions to the semis, and he'll be delighted with this on what's his pro debut. Of course, Thomas Hunt made his way up through the DTRA youth ranks. He was second in the junior class in 2017. He was third in the intermediates in 2018 and 19, and he's riding strongly here. Change of position for second. Neil McQueen coming through on Conrad Little down the back straight. Little then somewhat wayward in the early stages of this race. Gets it locked up coming off turn 4 to make a long straight of it. Tries to power back alongside Neil McQueen, but I think McQueen's got the measure of him. Thomas Hunt running somewhat wide coming off turn 2, and that's enabled Conrad Little to open something of a gap, although another big lock-up from Conrad Little. Just over a lap to go for Thomas Hunt to try and make his way through for third place, but it does look as though Alan Birtwistle and Neil McQueen will be the 2 men to march on to the front row of the grid for the semi-final stages. Conrad Little and Thomas Hunt also going through inside the last 24. Really strong ride there from Thomas Hunt. Never really in doubt as to who the top 4 were going to be there. George Sturgis trying to mount an assault from the middle row will take 5th position, and Simon Bird made a good start but then faltered as the race went on. So over 2 seconds the winning margin there for Alan Birtwistle, ahead of Neil McQueen in second place, third to Conrad Little and fourth to Thomas Hunt. They all move through to the semi-finals. A second's gap then to George Sturgis in 5th position. He and the rest of the field will have to go again come the eliminator races heats 4 and 5. Heat 3, and based on seeding, this should be the closest of our round 1 races. There was nothing to choose between Jack Bell and Rob Meir in qualifying. Both of them missed parts of last season, Bell due to clashes with the World Championship, he finished world number 12, and Meir favouring the British Grass Track Championship that clashed with last year's visit to Ammanford. Number 93, Jack Bell, still only 19 years of age, entering his 3rd pro season. He was runner-up to Toby Hales in his rookie 2021 campaign, looking to go one better in the championship this year. Just the 2 appearances last season for Meir, but he was 3rd here in September, so certainly a man to watch in this one. Those are the 2 riders off the inside 2 starting positions. Gate 3, P9 in qualifying, the number 19, Jordan Miller. Freddie Trott Jr., P10 in qualifying, the 253 goes off the outside. The middle row of the grid, Danny Williams, Gareth Williamson, Tim Gregg and Terry Pywell. From the back row, it's Mark Aylard, Sky Adams, Leigh North and Luke Potter. A little bit mixed up there in terms of their seeding positions, but starting marshal walking away, so seems satisfied enough. Best qualifier of that back row was Luke Potter, and he's ended up off the outside. Heat number 3 then, about to get underway. Riders watching for the lights, and a sluggish start uncharacteristically for Rob Meir. Usually such a fast trapper, but instead it's Freddie Trott Jr. who gets the whole shot. Rob Meir immediately on his case, pulls alongside coming off turn 2 and draws past. And Jack Bell's trying to go from 3rd to 1st here. Meir will tough it out around the outside, gets a bit of lift at the end of the opening lap, but holds sway. So it's Rob Meir on the 500, leading the 93 Jack Bell. Bell though gets through on Meir, who locks up coming off the second bend. 2 races in 1 here, the top 2 have broken well clear. 3rd position is Freddie Trott. He's already gone from 1st to 3rd and is now under pressure from Jordan Miller. The number 19 has come all the way around the outside on the pits turn and through for 3rd place. So Freddie Trott now in 4th and in the danger zone, because Gareth Williamson, the 147, has managed to wrestle clear of the peloton behind and is giving chase for that 4th place. Danny Williams got through on the inside of Tim Gregg coming off turn 2, tried to go around the outside of Gareth Williamson then coming off turn 4. He's still plying the outside line, Danny Williams. Those are for the minor placings, but all important, remember, the top 4 march on to today's semi-finals. Rob Meir, meanwhile, has got back around the outside of Jack Bell. 1.5 laps to go for the number 93 to try and recover that top spot. Rob Meir, we're used to seeing him making the fast starts and leading from the front, but he's made a couple of good overtaking manoeuvres. Firstly on Freddie Trott early on for the race lead, and then to come back through on Jack Bell to lead the way. And with just half a lap to go, Rob Meir is starting to build a cushion now ahead of Jack Bell in second place. Oh, Meir's lost it off the final turn. Yellow flags are out, but Meir's not going to get back up in time. He will be relegated out of the top 4. And Gareth Williamson, who's managed to hold on ahead of Danny Williams. Those two were 15th and 16th in qualifying. And it is Williamson who will benefit from Rob Meir's fall there and move into the top 4 and through to the semi-finals. So it just goes to show that every battle right the way through the order could be pivotal, because what was a scrap for 5th position and seemingly relatively meaningless ended up being for 4th place when Rob Meir went down on the final lap. So Meir with a lot of work to do now. In the next couple of races, he's going to appear in an eliminator. He's got to battle his way through from the back of one of those grids and into the top 6 to make it through to the semi-finals. Jack Bell, Freddie Trott Jr., Jordan Miller and Gareth Williamson will move on. Danny Williams misses out by less than 0.2 of a second. Close finish there for 4th, 5th and 6th places in heat number 3. Well, no doubt that the biggest story of this opening block of races was the final turn fall for Rob Meir. He had the race at his mercy and instead finds himself at the back of the field, the back of the grid for his second outing in the eliminators. Gareth Williamson then moving through for 4th position to qualify to the semis. The first of our 2 elimination races. Those who didn't make it in the top 4 in their first outings, now needing a top 6 spot to move through to the semi-finals. Tim Gregg, probably the biggest name in this company, the veteran 56-year-old, tells us this year is his 49th year on a bike. He had announced his retirement at the end of last season, but looks set to return to the World Championship again in 2023, and with a British round back on the calendar at the National Speedway Stadium in Manchester. Greg, meanwhile, on the number 10, back on a bike at Kings Lynn for pre-season practice last month after a 5-month winter for him. Alongside him on the front row, the 71 Scott Faulkner on the pole, 5th place for him in Heat 1. Simon Bird goes off Gate 2. He was 6th in Heat 2. Sam Shuck was 7th in that Heat 2. We are underway with Heat 4, and fast start from Simon Bird. So Bird off Gate 2 leads them. It is the front row riders who sit in those top 4 positions as things stand. Behind them, the number 911 of Jonathan James, fending off Terry Pywell on the inside. Colin McCabe on the number 50, the electric bike, on the outside. So it's McCabe at the moment of those on the second row of the grid, as well as Ben Anglesio, who will be set to miss out on places in the semi-final stages. Bird has got this one comfortably under control. Tim Gregg in 3rd position. Looks as though he's going to march on to those semi-final stages. But the question is who will be in 5th and 6th positions, the last of those transfer spots. At the moment, it's the 911 Jonathan James, looking over his left shoulder there, coming off turn 2. Sees he's got enough comfort over Terry Pywell for the moment at least, and an even bigger margin then back to the number 50, Colin McCabe, who looks set to bow out in the first of our elimination races here, the number 50. Race beginning to settle down then. Top 4 have broken well away now, and at 5th position, Terry Pywell looks as though he's got enough in hand over Colin McCabe as well. Pywell actually beginning to mount an assault now on Jonathan James. Cuts back to the inside around turns 1 and 2, so some lively action late on for 5th position. And that puts Jonathan James now into the danger zone, because Colin McCabe is coming for him. Front wheel up and alongside Jonathan James here with just a lap to go. Race on for the last of those transfer spots. Colin McCabe trying to find his way through on Jonathan James. And we've lost Sam Shuck coming off turn number 2. The 86. So McCabe passes James, but both will march on to the semi-finals. And there's more drama up front. We've lost the early race leader, Simon Bird, with a mechanical failure coming off the final turn. He's gone from 1st and he's going to drop out of those qualification spots. Just how far he will drop depends on how quickly he can run it over the line. He does get home ahead of Aaron Tuttleby, but that's going to be of very little consolation because Simon Bird had a semi-final place in his pocket throughout, and his bike lets him down off the final turn. Bad luck as well on the last lap for Sam Shook, so 2 of the top 4 on the grid bowing out in heat number 4. A dramatic last lap. Sam Shook goes down off turn 2. Simon Bird runs out of steam in the run to the line. Faulkner, Greg, Pywell, McCabe, James and Anglesio are the latter 2 beneficiaries in that heat 4. So Simon Bird, devastated, makes his way back to the pits, but it is without a place in the semi-finals for him. As I've said, McCabe and Anglesio benefiting from all the dramas there on that final lap. All eyes will be on Rob Meir for the second of our elimination races. His Heat 3 fall has been the main story of this meeting so far. It's going to leave him chasing his tail, rather, for the rest of this afternoon. A top 6 berth needed here. Top 2, remember, just to get himself onto the middle row of the grid for the semi-finals. And from there, he'd have his work cut out again for a good grid draw in the final. Very little room for error in this knockout format, and none now for Rob Meir in his second ride, Heat 5. The riders he has to work his way past: George Sturgis, who was 5th in Heat 2, goes off the pole. Danny Williams, who was 5th in Heat 3, goes off gate 2. 6th place in Heat 1, Kevin Kennedy goes off gate 3. Mark Richardson, who was 7th in Heat 1, off the outside. Harker, Adams, Neville, Potter, Pugh, Horner, Bluff and Meir complete your lineup. Kevin Kennedy it is with the whole shot. George Sturgis seeing off the challenge of Danny Williams around turn 1, and then Mark Richardson has gone too wide off turn 2. So Richardson down to 5th position, battling for 4th against Bailey Harker, who was on the inside of that second row. Rob Meir's already through into the top 6, got around the outside of Sky Adams for 6th place by the end of the opening lap. Is now through on Bailey Harker for 5th position. So Meir, every position he makes is a better grid draw for the semi-final stages. Next up is Mark Richardson on the 18. Richardson falls prey. Easy pickings at the moment for Rob Meir. The further he gets through the field, though, in this Heat 5, the tougher it will become. Inside line off turn 2. Great traction for Rob Meir to move through on Danny Williams. That's now 3rd place. And this is a demonstration ride, really, from Rob Meir, cutting his way through from the outside of the back row. Mark Richardson through briefly on Danny Williams. Williams comes back through. Now Richardson recovering the inside line off the second turn. So good racing right the way through the order in heat number 5. But what about Rob Meir? How much further can he get from 3rd position? A top 2 spot would give him a middle row grid slot for the semi-finals. That could be crucial. Cut back coming off turn 2 here to try and draw alongside George Sturgis now for 2nd place. Rob Meir with just over a lap to go, 6th in 3rd position. He's come through from 12th and last on the grid. He's through on George Sturgis on the inside. He's around the outside of Kevin Kennedy now for the lead coming off turn 2. A virtuoso ride from Rob Meir. The number 500 from the outside of the back row of the grid has made 2 passes in 2 turns on the final lap to take victory in Heat 5. Brilliant race that one from Rob Meir. It's Meir victorious, and after a last bend, last lap fall in his opening ride, Rob Meir has managed to make amends in his second outing on the final lap with 2 passes for a race victory and a place on the middle row of the grid for those semi-final stages. Meir, Kennedy, Sturgis, Williams, Richardson and Harker all moving through. Sky Adams, first of the riders to miss out, 1.6 seconds back ultimately from those top 6 places. But what a ride that was from Rob Meir, and I said that he'd provided the biggest story of the meeting so far in Heat 3. He's provided and produced the best ride of the day so far with that victory in Heat 5. We started the day with 14, now we are down to 24, and the next 2 races will eliminate another 2. In each, 5 direct transfer spots up for grabs to the final. The next 6 will go to the LCQ. Semi-final 1. Gary Birtwistle is the favourite. Took his opening ride by 3.5 seconds, and barring incident, he should be moving through. But even after Birtwistle, there are 4 more spots up for grabs. You'd have to say there are at least 6 other realistic contenders. Neil McQueen goes alongside Birtwistle on the number 7. He was 2nd in Heat 2. The 253 Freddie Trott Jr. started well in his opening ride, came home 2nd in Heat 3. Conrad Little. He was third in Heat 2. He completes the front row of the grid. The other direct transfers to the semis, Jordan Miller, who was third in Heat 3, and Jake Eady, who was fourth in Heat 1. 6 riders who've made it via the eliminators. The 71, Scott Faulkner. The 775, Kevin Kennedy. He's a dark horse for me. Second last time out in Heat 5 behind Rob Meir. The back row of the grid, Terry Pywell, Danny Williams, Jonathan James, and Bailey Harker. Bit of confusion about Williams' start position. Bailey Harker's taken it. Williams was 4th in Heat 5. Harker was 6th behind him. But Williams doesn't seem to mind. Neither does the start marshal. So it looks as though we are going to get underway. Semi-final number 1. Top 2 will qualify to the front row of the grid for the final. We are underway with a fast start from the outside from Conrad Little. Little will lead ahead of Gary Birtwistle. Birtwistle, though, comes through aggressively on Little, who locked up coming off the second turn. I think the pair connected. Little's been relegated down to 3rd place with Neil McQueen coming through for 2nd. Freddie Trott Jr. sits in 4th position. Last the direct transfer spots at the moment. They're 4 wide for it. Bit of an error there for Jake Eady coming back into turn 1. That's ruled him surely out of contention. Kevin Kennedy popping through around the outside here of Scott Faulkner. Faulkner back at him though, coming off turn number 4. This is the all-important place for direct transfer to today's grand final. 5th position, currently held by Scott Faulkner, but with the riders queuing up behind him. Kevin Kennedy, hot on his case, has already once been through. This is the race for 2nd position. Neil McQueen again through on Conrad Little. This is a seesaw affair for 2nd place, but it's all well adrift, perhaps predictably, of Gary Birtwistle. 2nd place will be a place on the front row of the grid for the grand final. So Neil McQueen with a real opportunity here as he sits up ahead of Conrad Little as things stand. Little coming back at him down the inside, sliding his way into turn 1, has the tighter line and seems to have the speed at the moment as well. Goes narrow into turn 3 and pulls alongside. So good scrap going on for 2nd place, but it's hotting up for 5th as well. And this is to avoid a spot in the LCQ. Scott Faulkner holds 5th place. Kevin Kennedy still trying to find his way through. He's practically rubbing his front wheel against Faulkner's back coming off the second turn down the back straight, and Kennedy prizes his way through down the inside of Faulkner. One final effort for Faulkner to get back on terms in the run to the line. Kennedy holds on, and Scott Faulkner will have to go again in the last chance qualifier after being picked off on the final lap, and look what that means to Kevin Kennedy. He knows that he has avoided one of the most difficult races of the meeting, the last chance qualifier. He'll go straight through to the grand final, and by a mere 0.2 of a second margin over Scott Faulkner. Birtwistle and Little through on the front row of the grid for the final. McQueen and Freddie Trott Jr. will join them on the middle row. Semi-final 2, and an interesting matchup here between 2 of our round 1 winners, Alan Birtwistle and Jack Bell. So top 2 spot would be a tall order for Rob Meir here from the middle row of the grid. As Heat 5 winner, he's already made it from last in the seeding after an opening ride fall to 7th seed for this race. Top 5, remember, make the final. But if he can make a quick getaway, he may be able to mix it with Birtwistle and Bell, and that could well be a dress rehearsal for today's deciding race. Alan Birtwistle, the winner of Heat 1, goes off the inside gate on the number 30. Alongside him, the 93 Jack Bell, the winner of Heat 3. Fast starter in his opening ride, the 181 Mike Goodfellow, was ultimately 2nd in Heat 1. He goes off gate 3. The outside, 3rd place first time out in Heat 1, that's Charlie Kelly. Middle row of the grid for Thomas Hunt. He was 4th in the opening race. Gareth Williamson was 4th in Heat 3. Those who've made it via the eliminators, Rob Meir with a last to first effort. The number 500 took Heat 5. Tim Gregg completes the lineup off the outside. The back row of the grid, George Sturgis, Colin McCabe, Mark Richardson and Ben Anglesio. Jonathan James was the 13th rider eliminated from this main meeting last time out. Last place in this one will follow him home for an early shower. Again, a bit of confusion on the grid. Thomas Hunt has lined up on the outside, but he should be on the inside. And that will give Tim Gregg his place on the outside of the middle row. So settled in now for semi-final number 2. Just got to get the back row gridded up, and looks as though Ben Anglesio can now move into position correctly. He will feel that he's been somewhat fortunate to make it through to the semi-finals, benefited from a fall coming off turn 2 and then a mechanical retirement on turn 4 of the final lap to get 6th place in Heat 4. What can he do with this opportunity here? Semi-final 2 gets underway, and another flying start from Mike Goodfellow all the way across from the outside. Goodfellow leads, but he's got them all right on his tail, all the big guns of the DTRA. Alan Birtwistle and Jack Bell straight through. Now head-to-head and toe-to-toe around the opening lap, duelling for top spot. Rob Meir getting around the outside now of Charlie Kelly and up into 4th position. Kelly at the moment occupies the last of those transfer spots to the grand final. He's got Gareth Williamson and George Sturgis, Mark Richardson, all in a line on his tail. Kelly will capitalise on Rob Meir's move for 3rd position to come through and up into 4th himself. So fast start for Mike Goodfellow, but he's tumbling backwards and he's all the way down now in 5th place and in the danger zone. Next in line to try and pass him, Gareth Williamson. Remember, came from the middle row of the grid. Mike Goodfellow from gate 3 on the front row. But Gareth Williamson has got a challenge in turn from George Sturgis, and these two really need to get their heads together and get their heads down to try and close in on the top 5 spaces. Otherwise, they're going to meet one another again come the last chance qualifier. Mike Goodfellow looks attainable for the likes of Williamson. And Sturgis, who, remember, has come from the back row of the grid, done well to do so, actually, from the inside of that back row. But as the race goes on, if anything, Mike Goodfellow starting to close on Charlie Kelly. A little bit out of shape there on turns 3 and 4. Gives Kelly a bit of breathing room. Oh, meanwhile, Rob Meir's got through on Alan Birtwistle. So Meir around the outside of Alan Birtwistle for 2nd place. And that completes what you would have said was mission impossible for Rob Meir, to get through from the back row of the grid in the eliminators through to the front row of the grid for the grand final. Really has provided the story of today's meeting thus far. Can he now cap it off with a first win with the DTRA come that grand final? Rob Meir with a good effort there to get through for 2nd place on Alan Birtwistle, who started with the pole but was relegated to 3rd. Jack Bell and Rob Meir moved through to the grand final on the front row of the grid. 2nd row of that grand final, Alan Birtwistle and Charlie Kelly, the 16-year-old. Great job from him there. Mike Goodfellow completes the automatic transfers. Williamson, Sturgis, Richardson, Gregg, Hunt, McCabe will go again in the LCQ. Ben Anglesio is eliminated from semi-final 2. Riders onto track for the last chance qualifier. The top 5 here will score championship points. The top 2 have a shot at the big points in the grand final. On the pole, the number 71, Scott Faulkner. He was 6th in semi-final 1. 6th in semi-final 2, the 147, Gareth Williamson, goes alongside him. 7th place in their respective semis, the 585, Danny Williams, and the 55, George Sturgis. And you have to say, Sturgis had some real pace from the back row of the grid in semi-final 2. He's got to be the danger man here. From the middle row of the grid, the 999, Jake Eady, finalist here at Greenfield in the 2022 season finale. Can he make it again? The number 18, Mark Richardson, 8th in the championship last year. It's not been a good start to 2023 for him. Bailey Harker and Tim Gregg, 9th in their semis, complete that middle row. From the back row of the grid, the number 19, Jordan Miller. Big surprise to find him on the back row. 3rd in the championship in 2021. He just hasn't been at the races today. Thomas Hunt alongside him, Terry Pywell and Colin McCabe completing the field. The last chance qualifier. The top 2 move through to today's grand final. And the fastest start is with George Sturgis from the outside. The number 55 has made it all the way across. And the man now with the target on his back is the 71, Scott Faulkner, who sits in 2nd place. They're 3 abreast for 3rd position going into the top turn. Gareth Williamson sticking it out and toughing it out around the outside, now switches to the inside at the start of lap 2 to try and move alongside Scott Faulkner. He's done so, and he's moved him right out to the edge of the track limits there. So Gareth Williamson aggressive on Scott Faulkner, and Mark Richardson tried to follow him through but clipped him and has gone backwards. Thomas Hunt has capitalised. He must have made up 3 or 4 positions there on that top turn. Up now into 4th place is Thomas Hunt, under some pressure from Bailey Harker, from Tim Gregg, backs out of that move down the inside. Mark Richardson now with the run on the outside, trying to recover, but watch Thomas Hunt. The cork in the bottle here is Scott Faulkner, and if any of these riders in the train want to get after the top 2, they've got to get through quickly on Scott Faulkner. Thomas Hunt has done exactly that. Around the outside on turns 1 and 2. Can Hunt recover the racing line now and close down Gareth Williamson for 2nd place? Faulkner dropping immediately backwards in 4th position. Will swiftly be under attack from Bailey Harker and Tim Gregg, but I don't think any of those three are going to get after Gareth Williamson in the way. That, at the moment, Thomas Hunt looks like he might. Hunt is closing down the top 2. It's George Sturgis who leads the way. There'll be no catching him, but here goes Hunt around the outside of Gareth Williamson for 2nd place in the closing stages. Williamson back at him. Hunter's got to be bold here. All the way around the outside on the pits turn. Big lock, a big moment for Hunt, but he holds on and he's through to the grand final on his pro debut. The number 241, Thomas Hunt. Well, Rob Mears' effort earlier on in the meeting was outstanding, but that too was exceptional from Thomas Hunt to make his way through from the back row of the grid and take one of just 2 qualification places to today's grand final. George Sturgis wins it, but by less than a second ahead of Thomas Hunt. Gareth Williamson misses out but takes 3 championship points, 2 points on the board for Tim Gregg and just 1 for Scott Faulkner, who occupied one of those transfer spots early on but went gradually backwards as the race went on. Here then are your 12 finalists. First seed, the number 11, Gary Birtwistle, the fastest semi-final winner, won Heat 1 and semi-final 1. The 33-year-old 9 times winner, took 6 of the 7 rounds last season, was only denied a clean sweep in his first title-winning campaign by Geoffrey Carver here at Greenfield in September. He's the reigning champion. Second seed is the number 93, Jack Bell, winner of Heat 3 and semi-final 2. The 19-year-old, the young pretender, Youth Senior Champion in 2019, runner-up in his Rookie Pro campaign in 2021. This his first meeting with Gary Birtwistle in 2023, so will show us how far he's come after the World Championship campaign late last year. The number 171, Conrad Little, is third seed, second to Gary Birtwistle in that first semi. 5th overall last year for Little, to 4th place is the best of his results, so chasing his first podium in the top flight. Of course, he was second in the intermediate class in 2019. The number 500, Rob Mears, has had the most remarkable day, but now resumes the business of chasing his first win. 5 podiums to his name, 2nd place in round 3 of his rookie 2018 campaign, his best yet. On the 2nd row of the grid, the number 7, Neil McQueen, the 43-year-old, 6th in the championship last year. The number 30, Alan Birtwistle, 25 podiums already to his name with the DTRA. Can he add another? The 253, Freddie Trott Jr., second to Jack Bell in Heat 3. He was 9th overall last year. The number 35, Charlie Kelly, completes the middle row. The 2017 Youth Junior Champion, the 2021 Youth Senior Champion, 2022 Intermediate Champion. Still just 16 years of age and enjoying a meteoric rise. 7th place, his best finish in the top flight last year. The number 775, Kevin Kennedy, on the back row of the grid, the 32-year-old Irishman, 3rd in the intermediate class last season. Alongside him, the number 181, Mike Goodfellow, 7th in the Amman Valley 2 years ago, his best result to date. The winner of the LCQ, the 55, George Sturgis, and the 241, Thomas Hunt, after his brilliant ride last time out, is your final qualifier. The opening grand final of the 2023 season gets underway with yet another hole shot for Rob Mears. Conrad Little was there or thereabouts on the first turn but was moved up, so Gary Birtwistle through into second, but most importantly Alan Birtwistle already through from the middle row of the grid and up ahead of Conrad Little, now attacking on the tail of Jack Bell. Gary Birtwistle lining up a cutback here, goes wide into turn 1, inside off turn 2, down the back straight and through to lead on Rob Mears. So Mears, despite the fast start on the inside, has been overhauled by Gary Birtwistle by the end of lap number 2, and it's Birtwistle who leads, from Mears in second, from Bell in third. 4th position with Alan Birtwistle, his early attack on the number 93, ultimately bearing little fruit, and it's Bell now who's pressing on forward. It's Rob Mears who's in his crosshairs. Jack Bell then on the 93. Rob Mears moved up slightly wider this time, wants to have the inside coming off turn 2, doesn't want to be picked off in the same way that he was against Gary Birtwistle on the second lap. Mears going to make harder work of this for Jack Bell. All the while Gary Birtwistle is escaping away, and I can't see Jack Bell getting through on Rob Mears and then still having enough pace to close down Gary Birtwistle, who, remember, had a good couple of tenths of a second in hand over his nearest rival in qualifying. Rob Mears leaves the door open going into turn 3. Jack Bell's got the better line, but Mears still holding firm, putting in a good race here. Again leaves the door open, this time back into turn 1. Tries to get across the path of Jack Bell, but Bell's already alongside him. Bundles his way through. There was contact down the back straight between Jack Bell and Rob Mears, and it's Jack Bell on the number 93 who's now through for second place. So change to your order in the podium places. It's Gary Birtwistle in front. The length of a straight, though, clear of Jack Bell in second. So I don't see Bell making up that ground. Rob Mears slipping back now from Jack Bell. Since he's been passed, he's gradually lost ground. I think he's got enough in hand, though, to still hold on to third place. Well clear of Alan Birtwistle. Birtwistle coming through on Conrad Little on the first two turns, really. Little was a little bit too determined into that first bend, got shuffled up, and Birtwistle has made that position his own. Conrad Little now under pressure for fifth place from Charlie Kelly behind him. And Charlie Kelly's previous best finish at this level was a 7th position in round 4 of the 2022 campaign. Sits in 6th as things stand, and he's eyeing up 5th. So this could be a best finish yet in the Pro Class for Charlie Kelly, but he's got Neil McQueen on his tail as well. The number 7, currently sitting in 7th place. This is where the action is, 5th, 6th and 7th positions. Here goes Neil McQueen, launching that move down the inside of Charlie Kelly, who holds the door firmly shut. Oh, big moment there for Conrad Little. That opens the door to both of his rivals. Charlie Kelly tries to go in deeper than him into turn 1. Little moves to block. Kelly now with the cutback, almost alongside off turn 2. Just that momentary error coming off turn 4 last time around for Conrad Little. Again, that wayward style of the number 171. Now the door's open for Neil McQueen, and he presses his advantage through on Charlie Kelly, who's relegated back to 7th. Can Neil McQueen now get on terms with Conrad Little? He's almost through down the inside. Little, so fast going into the turns, is able to hold sway in 5th position for the moment at least. Neil McQueen not giving up on that P5, an extra championship point available for it, and he's almost alongside again, coming off the second bend. Tries to elbow his way through, but Conrad Little again has got plenty of speed going into the turns. Last of the late breakers, clearly. He's a little bit out of shape coming off the bends, but he's just about got enough speed to hold on again ahead of Neil McQueen. Meanwhile, 2 riders, 3 riders already lapped into the closing stages. Kevin Kennedy in 10th position and Thomas Hunt in 9th. And now Freddie Trott Jr. as well, picked off by Gary Birtwistle. Only 7 riders will finish on the lead lap as Gary Birtwistle takes the opening victory of the 2023 campaign. Jack Bell over the line in second, and Rob Mears completes a fantastic afternoon in the end with 3rd position. And you'd have to say that after finishing at the back in his opening ride following a last lap fall, Rob Mears has salvaged his day quite superbly with the Heat 5 win, 2nd in semi-final 2, beating Alan Birtwistle and beating Birtwistle again in the grand final to complete the podium. 5th place eventually does go to Conrad Little. He holds on ahead of Neil McQueen and Charlie Kelly, and then the rest of the finishers we saw them lapped. Freddie Trott Jr., Thomas Hunt and Kevin Kennedy. Mike Goodfellow last of the finishers. George Sturgis did not finish after winning the LCQ. Gary Birtwistle then coming round on a lap of honour with the checkered flag, a familiar sight. He won 6 of the 7 rounds last season, missed out on the Greenfield Oval in September, so has made amends for that with the opening victory of this 2023 campaign, and by a dominant margin as well. 5.7 seconds, a crushing winning margin over Jack Bell and Rob Mears, really setting out his stall for the remainder of his title events.